Hello, 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 everyone. Good afternoon. Just about in the UK here. From wherever you're tuning in, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I do appreciate you being here. Today is a game week preview stream, which means it's only going to be about an hour. I am still going to look at the chat. I've got the chat in front of me. I'll still answer your questions. But the plan is I've got sort of 4 or 5 segments which I want to work through. And I'd like to discuss that with you guys in the chat, discuss it, sort of digest, think about game week 34 and beyond, the final few game weeks. And then once we've gone through each of those sections, I'm then going to do about a 15 or 20 minute Q&A at the end. If you're watching this as a video afterwards, because it will be going live as a video, all of the timestamps will be down below, but we're going to try and keep it short anyway, so that it is sort of digestible as a video after the stream as well. So do say hello. If you're in the stream, let me know that you can, of course, hear me and see me as well. Good to see you all. I really like doing these sort of afternoon streams sometimes, slightly different to the ones we usually do. Should note before we get into it today that I am not doing a deadline stream this week. This is another reason that I'm streaming this instead. I'm just unavailable. I'm actually at Fantasy Football Fest and I'm back home this weekend. So I won't be able to do a deadline stream. But what you've got is this stream here. You've got the wildcard guide video I've already done. And then on Friday morning, you're going to have my wildcard final team selection video as well. So with all that being said, we're going to move into today's video. Like I said, there are some specific segments. I can see lots of members in the chat, lots of people here that are regulars of the streams. I do really appreciate it. We'll move into each of those segments. Really keen to get your opinions on it all. Before we do move into all of that today, I just wanted to obviously give a massive shout out to SPITCH, who obviously continue to sponsor the live streams here on this channel. If you're watching this back as a video, fantastic. If you're watching it live, even better. Do click the link in the description. So that will take you to SPITCH. If you're in the UK or Germany, you can download SPITCH. It's basically a fantasy football application which allows you to build a free hit every single week, essentially. So you pick your different team each week and you can enter some really cool competitions with some amazing prizes. They've had like £5,000 cash. They've had AirPods, MacBook Pros. They've had lots of really, really cool options. Most of the competitions are free, but there are also some paid for versions as well. So it is 18 plus. Please be gamble aware, but I don't gamble on it. I enter all of the free competitions and you have the potential to get some pretty cool prizes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel and you'd also like to try a really cool fantasy football game, as you can see on your screen, picking the players here. And the thing is about this, it's a really interesting way of scoring. So the likes of Erdegaard, Tielemans, Ward-Prowse are actually really good options because they get a lot of key passes, interceptions, etc. Do give it a go. Like I said, link in the description. It's free to join. A lot of the competitions are free as well. It massively supports the channel. And also, I think it's a pretty cool game as well. So do give that a go. With all of that being said, let's move into it. So the first thing I wanted to do quickly is just show you how my Game Week 33 team is currently doing. Do let me know if you're in the chat, by the way. Let me know what your current Game Week 33 score is and let me know how many people you've got left as well to play. It's been, I wouldn't say a fail with respect to the score, but a lot of the players have blanked thus far. So Schmeichel, Target and Cher obviously blanked in their first game, but they are all playing this evening. I'm obviously recording this on Wednesday afternoon. So they're all playing this evening. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Newcastle get the clean sheet. And if they don't, hopefully Schmeichel can pull something out or at least get a few saves. To be honest, if I get like 6 points from Schmeichel and then 4 points from Target, 4 points from Cher, that's not terrible. If you consider the fact that Trent only got 6 points, they haven't done much worse than the likes of Trent. Walker-Peters getting a clean sheet in the first game now with Burnley still to come on the Thursday evening. That's really good. And I'm hoping if he gets the second clean sheet, could pick up sort of 12, 13 points there. That could be absolutely brilliant there as a pick. Salah, obviously amazing. I started the week considering potentially not putting him in. I had to think about it. I looked at the data and I thought I need to have Salah in my free hit. I know a few people removed him. That's really tough luck. I don't think it was necessarily like you had to include him. For me, I just thought he was the best single game week player this week. Obviously picked up 19 points. Probably should have given him the armband, but did really well. I'm a Manchester United fan, so it was a bit bittersweet. At least I included Salah. But that was a really difficult game and result to stomach as a Manchester United fan. It's worth noting as well, Salah was not in my non-free hit team. So if I didn't free hit, I wouldn't have got Salah in my team and I would have had Kane. So that is a massive advantage there of 17 points gained by just putting Salah in for the free hit team. Saka, Sancho and Fernandes all blanking. Saka's obviously got the second game. Fernandes was my captain, which absolutely sucks. Obviously only a 3-pointer, but it is what it is. And then we've got Wood got a 2-pointer again, blanked. Adams just didn't feature at all. Adams started 10 games in a row for Southampton and then all of a sudden just didn't feature at all. I think Shane Long came on before Adams. So I'm not sure what happened there. It's either a falling out or it was just a complete rest. I can't imagine, having seen how good he's been recently for the Saints, that it would have just been rotated. I think it's a rest or there was something going on. Either way, I'm hoping either he features against Burnley from the start. I hope he starts, or he just misses out altogether and then Barnes gets a goal against Everton. And then obviously Ronaldo. Delighted that I included Ronaldo. He was my vice. I did consider captaining. I didn't consider captaining Salah. I did consider captaining Ronaldo, as we spoke about on the live stream. But in the end, I felt comfortable with my decision with Fernandes. We didn't realise, of course, that Matic wasn't going to play against Norwich. The fact that Matic missed Norwich meant that Fernandes played a slightly deeper role. And then against Liverpool, Ronaldo missed, and we just basically parked the bus with 5 at the back. So in hindsight, Fernandes wasn't a great decision, but I'm happy with the decision-making process before the game week started. Apologies. So that's how the team's doing. So I'm on 62 points. I actually started the week with 54k, and I'm now at 37k. So I've got a 17k green arrow. It's pretty good. And with the fact that I've still got, I think, 7 left to play as well, if I can push into sort of the top 30k, pushing towards top 25k, I'm counting the free hit as a massive success. Because remember, I'm on my wildcard game week 34. I've still got my bench boost left to play as well. So I think this has been a pretty good, successful free hit thus far. One of the big things that it will come down to for me is I had Cancelo in my non-free hit team. So if Cancelo gets sort of 15 points, I'm going to massively regret having taken Cancelo out. And that will sort of counteract the fact that I brought Salah in. So I need Cancelo to hopefully get no more than sort of 6 or 7 points. And I need Maddison to try and stay quiet. If Maddison and Cancelo blank and one of my players gets a return, my remaining 7 players, I'm going to count the free hit as a definite success. And I'm pretty happy with the 17k green arrow at the moment. What we saying in the chat? What have people got? 69 points with 6 to play. 59 Salah captain. Salah captain was a great shout. 42, 52 with 6 to play. 86 points Ronaldo captain. Wowza. No Salah, no Ronaldo. I'm mudded. Yeah, if you didn't, basically, that's what this entire game week has come down to. Unless you included maybe like Mane and Diaz, or maybe if you had like double Liverpool defense. But if you don't have Salah and you don't have Ronaldo, you're probably looking at a very, very big red arrow, and that's pretty much all it is. There's been a lot of blanks this week, but those 2 have come in trump. So I'm glad that I own both of them. Unfortunately, didn't give either of them the armband. If I'd have given Ronaldo the armband, obviously it's a lot of ifs and buts and maybes, and I didn't at the end of the day. But I would be in a really good position now. Right, I'd obviously be like closer to sort of 80 points, pushing 80 points, and I'd be in a really good position. But anyway, I'm very happy with it. That's the way the team looks. Just to let you know what the rest of the stream and video is going to look like, we're going to go through Chelsea assets, Manchester City assets, which midfielders can we sell if we want to get Mount Havertz / Foden in, one of those 3. And then after that, we're going to finish with budget strikers. And then, like I said, there's going to be a Q&A at the end. So let's get on to discussing Chelsea assets. Want lots of comments in the live stream as well on what you guys think of these Chelsea assets that we're going to discuss. So the first thing I'd like to do is present their season-long data. So for the Chelsea and Manchester City assets, I'm going to present their season-long data, and then I'm going to present their data over the last 6. The reason for that is there's no magic number when it comes to how big of a sample size you should use. But what I like to do is look across the season, look across the last 6, and if there's a matchup, that's great, right? If they're very similar numbers across the season to the last 6, perfect. If there's a big discrepancy, i.e. they've dropped off massively, I want to know why that is. And if there's a massive increase, again, I want to know what has happened there that has resulted in the increase. Is it just one game skewing the data? And I think by doing this, it allows us to have a better grasp of the statistics that we're looking at. So these are, in my opinion, the top 6 Chelsea assets for the rest of the season. And I say my opinion, it's a fairly obvious point to make. I do think that Edouard Mendy is a fantastic option. I think Thiago Silva is fine as well. But if I were to list my 6, it would probably be these guys here. At least 6 outfield players anyway. 3 defenders, Alonso, Rudiger, Reece James. 3 attackers, Mount, Havertz, Werner. Obviously, one of the big questions is, do you go for double defense? Do you go for double attack? It's a difficult question to answer. I think you need at least probably 1 defender and 1 attacker, and then it's just that final spot. And then it basically comes down to a little bit of your risk appetite and whether you pay more attention to expected minutes or whether you pay more attention to expected goal involvement. So what you can see in the table in front of you, and for most of the tables for this video, it's going to be a little bit table heavy, but hopefully you guys don't mind. That first column there, or the second column with data, it says minutes per expected goals conceded and minutes per expected goals. So for the defenders, it's their minutes per expected goals conceded. That tells you how many minutes it takes for that team to accumulate 1 expected goal conceded. So you can see Chelsea are the 2nd best defence in the league across the season, and it takes them 92.4 minutes to concede an expected goal. Right? So that's pretty good. They are one of the best defences in the league this season. Excellent underlying data. From an attacking perspective, they are currently 3rd in the league after Liverpool and City, and they accumulate an expected goal every 50.8 minutes. So what this tells us is you're fine with the defense and you're fine with the attack. If you're looking across the season, slightly better from a defensive perspective, but both the defense and attack are fine. The next column is the big one for me. This is minutes per expected goal involvement. So what this tells you, again, is how long it takes for each of these players to accumulate an expected goal involvement. So just to put this into perspective, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Kane, Ronaldo, Son, right? Those four premiums, they're sitting at around 120 minutes per expected goal involvement. So if you're looking at sort of those upper echelons, pushing towards 100 minutes would be excellent. It means they're almost accumulating an expected goal involvement every game, if they play 90 minutes, that is. So as you can see on this list, we'll start with the three defenders. Rudiger is not a massive goal threat. He's very good for a centre-back. That isn't bad for a centre-back at all, 628 minutes. But when people keep telling me that Rudiger's a fantastic goal threat, really gets into the box and drives forward, he does pass the eye test. He goes on marauding runs. He does like to throw himself at crosses. This data doesn't suggest that he's going to regularly get you any attacking returns. Okay, so if he's getting expected goal involvement every 628 minutes, you're looking at about every sort of maybe 6-7 games that he would be accumulating expected goal. So across the season, you might expect maybe one return for the remainder of the season, but it's not that likely. So worth noting with Rudiger, he definitely passes the eye test, very safe for minutes, obviously gets the clean sheets as well, but he's not got a great goal threat. Alonso is then the next one at 363, which is much better now. Again, not mind-blowing, but pretty good for a fullback. I'd be happy with 363. And then you can see after that, it's Reece James at 221. Now, 221 across the season is very good. That's better than Harvey Barnes. That's better than James Maddison. That's better than a lot of sort of those mid-priced, like Rafinha, etc. That's better than most midfielders and attackers that you would find in the game. So across the season, we know this. Reece James has been the one to have. But of course, more recently, he has been playing right centre-back in a couple of games, which we will talk about in the next section. So if you're just looking at that and combining that with projected points, as you can see, Reece James actually projected to get the most points on this list over the final few game weeks, according to FPL Review at 30.8. I would say that the defender to own, looking across the entire season, is, of course, Reece James. You didn't need me to break down the stats to tell you that, but in case you would like the evidence, Reece James will get about, if he plays a similar amount of minutes to Rudiger, about 3 times the expected goal involvement across the final 5 game weeks, according to this data anyway. So I still think Reece James is the one. Of course, playing right centre-back recently does change it slightly, but that's my opinion on that there. Then when we look again across the whole season for Mount, Havertz and Werner, what I would say is that they're very, very similar. So minutes per expected goal involvement, as you can see, Mount 147.5, very, very good. Havertz at 164.3, still very good underlying statistics. I would not turn my nose up at that. Even for 7.9 million, they are still very, very good numbers. And then Werner actually comes out on top at 143.7. Of course, these do obviously matter how many minutes you play, right? These aren't per 90 statistics, but if you're only going to play 143 minutes in comparison to someone else that's going to play 500-600, that does make a big difference, right? But Werner is coming out on top across the entire season thus far, right? 143.7, Mount just after, and then Havertz just after that. With respect to projected minutes, Fantasy Football, FPL Reviewer, I should say, favours Mount. That's due to expected minutes again. Havertz just about behind at 28.2. So Mount and Havertz projected to get a very similar amount of points. And then down at 17.5 is Werner. But very important, if you've used FPL Review before, you'll know this. They've got his expected minutes down at 43 minutes per 90. I think he'll play more than that. If you up Werner's underlying expected minutes to around sort of 60 expected minutes per 90, per game, I should say, then that would put him up at around sort of 26, 27. That then makes him a very, very good option. So it's worth noting that if you expect Werner to play more minutes, his projected points are a lot higher. So putting all of this together, again, we're going to look at the last 6 matches in a second. Putting all of this together, my Raptor ranking, I actually like Havertz at the moment. That is mainly because of the last 6, but across the season, he's very consistent. Mount, a lot of Mount's sort of underlying data, hauls, and his actual returns, I should say, come in a very sort of magnified period and against only a couple of opposition. Havertz ticks along really nicely, and I just like the positions that he's picking up. So at the moment, I actually just about prefer Havertz. Mount is then a close second, and then that third spot for me just about goes towards James and Alonso as opposed to Werner. Just about. I still think Werner is a great option. I'm not turning my nose up at Werner at all. He's actually been in a couple of my drafts. So if I were right now forced to make a decision on my favourite 3, I would go Havertz, Mount, probably Reece James. Very close. Fourth would be Alonso. And then just after that is Werner. Rudiger, for me, I just don't like it. I don't fancy Rudiger as a pick at all. The reason for that is we've only got 5 game weeks left. If we had 12 game weeks left, I would be saying to you, I really like Rudiger as an option. But across 5 weeks, unless you're expecting him to get an attacking return, which he could quite easily do, right? He could quite easily do so. Unless you're expecting to get an attacking return, I don't care if he plays 1 extra game in comparison to Reece James and Alonso. I would fancy Alonso and Reece James to outscore Rudiger, potentially with even 2 less games, just because they're so good going forward. And I just think that Mount and Havertz have that potential as well. So that's my opinion on Chelsea over the season. Let me just catch up with the chat because I've not really been paying too much attention to it. So let's have a look what people say. Can you tweet your stream out? I did tweet it out, but it's fine. This will be available as a... Oh, can you tweet my stream out? Yeah, of course you can. Go for it. That'd be nice. If anyone wants to share this on Twitter, the more the merrier. I really like Werner as an option. I think Werner's fine. You missed the 4th spot, mate. No, I didn't. Because Reece James and Alonso are joint 3rd. The next one becomes 5th. So, yeah. So Werner is technically 4th if you count Alonso and James as joint 3rd. I like Werner in isolation, but not sure about a £9 million striker. This is one of my major issues with Werner as well, as a £9 million striker. I agree. Kind of like Alonso. I really like... Alonso's actually in my second... So I've got 2 drafts. I'm not going to go through my wildcard drafts in this video. That'll be on Friday. I've got 2 drafts, which I absolutely love. One has Reece James. The other one has Alonso. Both drafts have Mount and Havertz. So that gives you an idea of which players I prefer. Both drafts have Mount and Havertz. One has Alonso, one has James. I do have a draft which is my 3rd or 4th favourite with both Alonso and James. I just really want Mount and Havertz, to be honest. I've seen a few threads mentioning that Mount is playing more central now with Havertz on the wing. Any thoughts on that? Yeah, so in the game against Palace, and at points as well in some of their sort of more recent games, across only the last 2 or 3 games, rather than playing like a 3-4-3 for Chelsea, where they're playing 1 central striker in Havertz and then Werner and Mount on the wing, what they've actually switched to is a 3-4-1-2. Now, what that looks like is in some of the build-up, they've still got Mount on the right, they've still got Havertz, Werner on the left, and they've still got Havertz through the middle. But what it sometimes looks like is Werner joins Havertz as a striker. So they're almost playing 2 up top with Havertz and Werner. And then they're actually playing Mount as sort of a more traditional number 10. So what it essentially looks like is Mount comes back into the middle a little bit, and that pushes Werner a little bit higher. If that's the case, I actually think that makes both Mount, Havertz, and Werner better options. It gives Havertz someone to play off and alongside. It puts Werner in a slightly more attacking central role, and it puts Mason Mount, in my opinion, his best area. I don't think he's bad on the right wing at all. He's absolutely excellent, but he's so deadly through the middle. So I actually don't think that makes them any worse options personally. I don't think that changes my opinion on who I think are the best assets. Right. So that is across the season. If we then switch to the last 6, I just want to show you what differences this makes, right? So I've tried changing the graphics slightly so you know we're now looking across the last 6. With respect to team data across the last 6, Chelsea are the 4th best defence, conceding expected goals conceded every 93.9 minutes. So the defence is very, very similar. Their attack is actually slightly better, but they're still 3rd best in the league, but 44.7. So again, defence and attack is absolutely fine. I don't mind the double up on defence. I don't mind the double up on the attack. I'm not really here to tell you whether to go double up on defence or double up on attack. If you've watched my channel for a while, I don't tell people what to do. I present some data to you and I allow you to come to your decision. I can tell you that my opinion is that I think I prefer the double attack. I think there's slightly more upside there, and I like some of the other defenders that you can choose, such as a Matty Cash. I actually think that these Mount and Havertz are the best options at that price, in my opinion. When we look at minutes per... So obviously projected points and my Raptor rank stay the same. Minutes per expected goal involvement. Alonso's has improved slightly, but very, very similar at 310. Rudiger's has dropped off even further now. So Rudiger's getting an expected goal involvement every 750 minutes. Now, it's going to seem like I'm bashing on Rudiger. Rudiger is absolutely fine. Like, genuinely, absolutely fine as a pick. I'm pretty certain he will get the most minutes out of all of these options on this list. He's not demonstrating, according to the underlying data, any signs that he's going to score or get any attacking return, right? I'm just telling you what the data says. I can't predict the future. He could quite easily score 2 bullet headers in one game, but the data's suggesting that Rudiger's potentially not got any attacking threat, and I would rather look towards Alonso and Reece James as a result. What is interesting, though, is Reece James has dropped down to 394.2. So this is one of the most notable differences between the last 6 matches versus across the entire season, is that Reece James has dropped off massively. Now, this isn't as the result of playing right centre-back because he hasn't been playing right centre-back in the league in a lot of these games. So this isn't just the result of playing right centre-back. This would suggest that there has been a slight decline in his output regardless. Something to monitor. He hasn't played every minute in those 6 matches, which is worth noting. But this actually makes me start to think, can I save 0.8 million? Can I go from James to Alonso? So this is the only reason for me that Alonso is on par with James at the moment, and he's in a couple of my drafts. Across the season, James is the one. But this combination of James potentially playing right centre-back, Alonso showing really good data recently, and looking fairly nailed in that back 5, I'm starting to consider Alonso quite seriously, and I haven't made the decision yet. Just on this sort of right centre-back discussion, it depends which way you want to frame it. If you frame it like Reece James can play right centre-back and right wing-back, you can frame that really positively. That means that he should still start the majority of games right wing-back, but when he doesn't start right wing-back, rather than being rested completely, Tuchel said that it's not particularly demanding to play right centre-back. That's great. So he'll play most of the games right wing-back, and then he'll slot into right centre-back when he doesn't. So that's the positive way to view it. The negative way is Tuchel says that he's very good at right centre-back and that it stops him from getting injured. Therefore, we'll probably see him play most games at right centre-back and maybe not many at all at right wing-back. This is what we call the framing effect in psychology. It's a very well-known cognitive bias. You could frame that either way, and I don't think either way is wrong or right. It hasn't put me off Reece James that much as an option, but what it has probably put me off of is Reece James as a captaincy option. So if you were looking to bring in Reece James and captain him this week, it puts me off slightly knowing that he has the potential to play both games at right centre-back. The other thing that puts me off slightly is that he has played 2 games recently. If he starts against Arsenal, and I should caveat that all of these picks are probably dependent on what happens against Arsenal. If James starts against Arsenal at right centre-back or at right wing-back, if he starts at all, I don't think he plays both games in game week 34. So I wouldn't captain him. I would still potentially put him on the wild card. If Alonso's rested, I'm going Alonso. So if James starts and Alonso's rested, Alonso's going to be my wild card draft. And I know that's very short-sighted with respect to only because of this benching. But for me, the 36 double, I think there's going to be rotation anyway. Later on in the season, I think Alonso and James might start both 37 and 38 anyway. I really want to attack this double. And the only way to attack this double is to probably go off the basis of what happens against Arsenal. So in my opinion, Rudiger is a no for me, but I don't mind him. It's between James and Alonso. Across the season, it's James. More recently, it's Alonso. Take your pick. With respect to the attackers, this data is very interesting. So one of the things that I love about Mason Mount, because I've been looking into this data a lot, different sample sizes, touch maps, shot maps. One of the things I love about Mount is he is incredibly consistent. So if you look at random samples everywhere across the season, across the last 6, Mason Mount is very consistent. So you can see here his minutes per expected goal involvement hasn't changed much at all. Werner's has increased quite a bit to 104.5, so very good for Werner. It's worth noting that he accumulated a ridiculous expected goal involvement against Southampton. I think it was something like 2 or 2.5 against Southampton, so that is worth bearing in mind. But so did Havertz, right? Havertz is now at 100.8, which actually puts him 2nd or 3rd in the league for players that have played, I think it's 2 or 3 games across the last 6. So Havertz, across the last 6, is one of the best players in the league to own. This is what makes me lean towards Havertz. Yes, Mount is very consistent. Mount's probably got slightly higher expected minutes. Havertz looks on fire at the moment. So does Mount, don't get me wrong. But this is why, for me, I can't choose between Mount and Havertz. So in my wildcard drafts, I've got Mount and Havertz. I think they're both good for different reasons. And then I've gone for one of Reece James and Alonso. So to sum up all of this Chelsea section before we move on to Manchester City, in my opinion, you go for Mount as the safe attacker. You then go for one of Havertz and Werner, and then you go for one of Alonso and James. So your triple up should look like Mount, Alonso/James, and then Havertz/Werner if you're going for a Chelsea triple up. If you're only targeting one player, maybe you've got no Chelsea assets and you're trying to bring one in this week, I think Mount's probably the sensible option because he's got very good expected minutes. And like I said, he's consistent across the season with respect to his expected data. And we know he has those monster hauls in him. He's got a 19-pointer, a 24-pointer, a couple of 13-pointers. But I can't get my mind off Havertz. But like I said, it does massively depend on what happens in the Arsenal game. If Mount is rested in the Arsenal game, I'm captaining Mount. If Havertz is rested in the Arsenal game, I'm captaining Havertz. If Werner's rested, all of a sudden, I'm starting to think about Werner. So, yeah, let me see what the chat's saying. Do drop a like on the stream, by the way, if you're watching this, or if you're watching this as a video afterwards, thank you very much. Drop a comment down below, drop a like on the video. I want to see what people are saying. What people think. So if you can in the chat, whilst you're watching this, can you just drop your top 3 Chelsea assets? Don't cop out like me. Don't do what I've done, like Alonso/James. Give me your top 3 assets. If you had to bring in, on a wildcard, 3 Chelsea assets, who would you bring in? I'd be very interested to hear this. And also, if you're watching this as a video, drop a comment down below. Who are your top 3 Chelsea assets? If I were pushed, like I said, it would be Havertz, Mount, and James. I really like Alonso, though. By Friday, I might be on Alonso. What are people saying? Mount, Havertz, Christensen. Okay. I'm not considering any other defenders off this list. Maybe Edouard Mendy, but unlikely. What are we saying? James, Havertz, Mount. James, Havertz, Mount. James, Havertz, Mount. Mount, Havertz, Alonso. Mendy, James, and Havertz. Double defence, right? Not a lot of people looking at double defence. I like that. Okay, so the chat, potentially because I've just presented the data to suggest that, have actually said Mount and Havertz seem to be in most people's, and then it looks like one of Alonso and James. So it looks pretty similar to my rankings. Like I said, do let me know down below what you're thinking. Hopefully that has helped clear it up. With respect to captaincy, you could captain anyone on this list, maybe bar Rudiger, but Rudiger's probably more likely to start both, and therefore the clean sheets are there. Whoever's rested. If any of these players are rested against Arsenal, I fancy them for the armband. So that would be my advice. If you're watching this after the Arsenal game, then you'll of course know at that stage. If none of them are rested, maybe whoever comes off early or whoever just looks fantastic. If Havertz bags a brace and comes off at 60, you're looking at that player, right? So the next data I want to look at is actually Manchester City data. So we're going to do exactly the same. Manchester City across the season, and then Manchester City across the last 6. One of our Rap Tier members in the Discord, private Discord channel, was asking about sort of prioritising City assets, and is it maybe worth looking at getting maybe 1 or 2 Chelsea plus a City, or do we prioritise Chelsea? Just to start with answering that question, in my personal opinion, I would be probably prioritising Chelsea this week and then City next week. So I would probably go for Mount and Havertz and one of the Chelsea defenders. And then the week after, because City's fixtures continue to be pretty good, I would then start looking at some Manchester City assets. If you've already got 2 Chelsea players and you've got like a free transfer, maybe you go for a City player. I don't think that's an issue at all. They've of course got Watford at home. It's a great fixture if you don't expect them to rotate. So I've done exactly the same here. So the 6 players, in my opinion, are probably only 2 defenders here. You could go Diaz, Stones, Walker, if you want to do Edison. But I think it's Laporte and Cancelo. And then I think you've got 4 probably attackers. You could go Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Jesus. But the 4 attackers for me are probably Foden, Mahrez, Sterling, and De Bruyne. All right, these are probably the 6 options that I'd be looking at for Manchester City. With respect to as a team, are they defending better or attacking better? Their defensive data this season is so scary. 142.5 minutes per expected goal conceded. It takes them 142 minutes. That's like over a game and a half to concede an expected goal. So very good defensively. And then they are the 2nd best attack in the league, only behind Liverpool. 37.9 minutes per expected goal per expected goal, right? So that means essentially they're starting to approach 3 expected goals per 90, and they're conceding about sort of 0.5, 0.6 expected goals per 90 as well, per game, if that makes sense, right? So they're a very good defense and a very good attack. This probably suggests that their defense, I should say, is probably the one to target just about, but I don't mind either. With respect to minutes per expected goal involvement for the 2 defenders, I wanted to draw your attention to this in comparison to Rudiger, because this is the reason that I've gone for Laporte in all of my drafts in comparison to Rudiger. Laporte's is 4.65. We saw that Rudiger's was about 6.28. So when there's only 5 games left, it's difficult to try and predict these hauls, but Laporte has been consistently this season showing that he is a greater goal threat than Rudiger, and Manchester City's defence is better. So if you're asking me, do I think you should go for James and Rudiger as the double up, or just go for James and then go for like Cancelo and Laporte? Laporte looks the better option because City are a better defence and Laporte has better goal threat. So that's my personal opinion on it. I slightly prefer Laporte. He does have 1 less game than Rudiger, and maybe he's a slightly more of a rotation risk than Rudiger. I still just about prefer Laporte. And you can actually see Laporte's minutes per expected goal involvement isn't that far away from Cancelo. So Cancelo's sitting at 295.9, not too dissimilar from Laporte. So I said in my game week, my wildcard guide video, if you're going to downgrade one of those premium defenders, Cancelo, Trent, James, to their cheaper counterpart, Cancelo to Laporte, that gap isn't that big for me. So I like the double up, but if you're not going to go for the double up and you need to find 1 million, I don't think Cancelo to Laporte is a terrible downgrade. I do think it's a downgrade, but I don't think it's that bad. So that's my opinion on those 2. And then with respect to the attackers, for me, it's Foden and De Bruyne due to expected minutes. Right, it's worth noting that Foden and De Bruyne are significantly more likely to get minutes over the final 5-6 games that they've got. But if we want to look at the underlying statistics, Mahrez is the standout. Now, penalties do factor in here. This isn't non-penalty expected goal involvement. This is expected goal involvement. So penalties do skew this. But 97.5 across the season is one of the best in the league, probably only behind Salah and Jota here. So you're looking at one of the best attackers in the league, on penalties as well. If Mahrez gets minutes, he is always, in my opinion, the best Manchester City asset to own. The issue is that he tends to play midweek. Manchester City are, of course, still in the Champions League as well. And they've got Jesus that can fill in that role. They've got Sterling, Foden, Bernardo Silva, Grealish. They've got so many options, and I don't necessarily know that Mahrez is in their favoured 11. You've then got just after that Sterling at 112.7. Again, pretty good, but minutes is the issue. Then Foden at a very respectable 136.1. Foden's data all season has been very good, and Foden's been nailed as well. And then after that, you've got De Bruyne. This is what I want to draw your attention to here. I'm not saying De Bruyne is a bad pick, but 185.1, would you not rather just go for Foden? You're saving exactly £4 million for Foden in comparison to De Bruyne. £4 million saved. Would you rather not save £4 million for slightly better underlying statistics and maybe slightly less expected minutes and use that £4 million elsewhere? In my opinion, yes. I'll just finish with the projected points. 30.6. De Bruyne is still projected to get the most points. But as you can see, only about 3 more projected points than Cancelo and Foden. Only about 4 more than Laporte, right? And even Mahrez projected to get quite a few points as well. So if I was to put this all together, again, my Raptor rankings, I still think Cancelo is the best asset to own. He's got the goal threat. 295 is very, very good, sort of approaching that of Reece James, similar to that of Robertson. 295 is excellent. He's got pretty good projected points, the best defense in the league by some distance, and he's very nailed. I think after that, I would actually still put my second favourite as Laporte. Again, good defence, good underlying data. My third is Foden, and then I think it's De Bruyne. If De Bruyne was 9 million, I'd have De Bruyne every day of the week. But when he's 4 million more than Foden, 4.7 million more than Cancelo, and I don't even want to try and do the math on the stream, but about 5 or 6 million more than Laporte, that is a significant amount of money. So to put that together, Cancelo, Laporte and Foden would be my 3 picks. Again, I'm just going to go back to the chat now, have a look what the chat's saying. Do drop a like if you're watching this live, by the way. Help push it out to other people. So if you're watching this live and you're enjoying it, or if you're watching it back as a video, please do drop a like. What do we say? What are we saying on the City assets? I'd grab Laporte, but I'm worried about rotation. Yeah, it is a slight worry, especially now that Diaz is back, because you've got Diaz, Laporte and Stones. The thing that I would say is that Stones can play right back, and obviously they've got other competitions to worry about as well, so we might see a little less rotation. I think Laporte will play 5 of the final 6, maybe 4 of the final 6. He is a slight rotation risk, though. I do understand it, but so's every player from the top team. Jota, Diaz, Mane, even to some extent Salah, De Bruyne, Foden, Laporte, all of these options, Chelsea assets, Mount Havertz, they're all rotation risks. So I don't necessarily think Laporte's much of a rotation risk in comparison to other assets from top teams. How about Walker? Yeah, I don't mind Walker. He was currently sort of flagged, so I didn't put Walker on here. Walker's underlying data is poor. So I think it's about 800 minutes per expected goal involvement this season. So you're putting Walker in there purely for the price. I do think that when he's fit, he's fairly nailed. But Walker's underlying data from an attacking perspective really is not very good. So I'd probably avoid Walker if you can and just try and upgrade to Laporte. Yeah, people are liking Cancelo and Laporte or Cancelo and Foden. How do you justify Foden with such low FPL returns in the last 10? Even Zaha is slightly better. The data. I'm a bit of a sucker for data, and the data suggests that he's been unlucky to not return slightly more. His data is much better than the likes of Zaha, Maddison, Barnes, Saka, Kulusevski. It's better than all that. It's better than Mount even. Closing in on that on Havertz. So for me, Foden's still a fantastic option. And City will score a lot of goals. Pep's already commented that he thinks goal difference is important. I think City will go for the jugular. And I don't think he'll make too many early subs, in my opinion. I think they're going to continue to try and score as many goals as possible. Right. Let's now then switch to over the last 6. Right. So this is over the last 6 Manchester City assets. I've sort of talked for a lot longer than I wanted to. So let's just look at minutes per expected goal involvement. Laporte has dropped off slightly at 509.4, so that is worth noting. Not particularly great, but still, again, about 250 minutes better than Rudiger. So I still think Laporte's the one over Rudiger personally. Cancelo has dropped off again slightly, but only down to 301.7. So what I would say is Laporte and Cancelo being fairly consistent in their goal threat. They're both decent goal threats. I would be very happy if Cancelo and Laporte get 1 or 2 attacking returns between them over the back end of the season. Outside that, you're probably hoping for bonus points outside of that. It's very difficult to try and predict in a 5-game week period, which we've got left, if a defender's going to get an attacking return. You put in defenders with decent attacking data and just hope at the end of the day. Foden, very consistent again, 151. So I'd put Foden and Mount right next to each other with respect to not sensational attacking data, but very good and very consistent. Foden and Mount to me are very similar players if you're looking at underlying data. So 151.2 for Foden. Mahrez still very good at 104, so he's gone up from 97, but still the best on this list by some distance, Mahrez. So again, if you're expecting him to get minutes, I like him. Sterling's still very good at 115.8. And what we've seen over the last 6 is a slight increase for De Bruyne, but De Bruyne is still 4th out of the list of attackers here. So he's still only at 154.2. I think De Bruyne is fantastic. I think he's a safe captaincy shout, and I would expect De Bruyne to play every game for the remainder of the season, potentially missing one, maybe one. You might see one game rested for De Bruyne. Is it worth paying 11.8? I've come to the conclusion, no. When you can get Foden, Havertz, Mount, Werner, even to some extent Mahrez, Coutinho, Saka, I don't think that his numbers suggest to me that he's that great of a pick, personally. So I'm not looking at him at the moment. That's my opinion on it. Still Cancelo, Laporte and Foden. I think the chat seems to roughly agree that it's Cancelo, Foden, Laporte. Maybe a couple of people going for Mahrez in there. A couple of people thinking about maybe just going for the double up if you want to. Not that many considering De Bruyne in the chat, but again, that might be because of the data that I've presented. De Bruyne is an excellent finisher. He can pull something out of nothing. He's on a lot of set pieces. So, like I said, I still think he's a good option, but for me, not the best option. So putting all this together then, I've suggested a lot of midfielders. Probably my top 3 at the moment would be Foden, Mount and Havertz. Maybe, like I said, I think Coutinho is a good option. If you want to bring in some of these players, who are the midfielders to sell? So what I've tried doing is I've listed some of the best assets, the most highly owned midfield assets in the game at the moment, excluding Salah, because I don't think anyone's going to be selling Salah anytime soon. This is according to ownership, effective ownership, and just what I've seen on Twitter. So the list I've got is Martinelli, Kulusevski, Barnes, Saka, Maddison, Coutinho, Son, and Fernandes. I think a lot of people's midfield 5 might consist of 4 of these plus Salah. If that's the case, you might be looking at Mount and Havertz and maybe Foden thinking, I really want them, but how on earth do I get them into my team? So if you own someone like a Ward-Prowse or a Cornet or a Rafinha, it might be a little bit easier. You say, right, they're obviously the one to go. But if you own 4 of these plus Salah, or even if your midfield 5 is in here, it could be quite tricky to decide which to sell. So again, it's a very similar table here. We've got minutes per expected goal team data. We've then got minutes per expected goal involvement, which is, again, just an idea of basically their goal threat and assist threat combined. We've then got projected points, and we've got when they double and their fixture difficulty according to the Fantasy Football Scout ticker across the season. And then with respect to which cells are highlighted in green, if it's bright green, it means it is better than both Havertz and Mount. If it's just that faded green, it means it is better than either Havertz or Mount. If it's white, it means the statistic is not better than Mount or Havertz. So what I'm trying to get at here is, are any of these better options than Havertz and Mount, or Havertz and Mount better options than both? Are they both better options than all of these? So as you can see by just eyeballing this table, not many of these guys are better options than Mount and Havertz, according to the data that I've got presented, which would suggest that you're probably okay selling all of these for Mount or Havertz. It makes sense with the double coming up, with the fixtures they've got, with the underlying data that Mount and Havertz are putting up. It makes sense to sell pretty much everyone on this list, but you can maybe slightly prioritize which of those to sell. With respect to the attacking data that stuck out to me, it was pretty much that Tottenham and Arsenal are very good attacks at 4th and 6th. What really stood out to me, and just sort of basically cemented Coutinho in my wildcard draft, is Villa actually have the 7th best attacking data for minutes per expected goals over the last 6 matches. So I actually really like Villa. I've got Watkins and Coutinho at the moment. They're attacking okay. Yes, we might see a bit of rotation. Yes, they don't have that much to play for, but Coutinho's data is good. They're 7th in the league for attacking data. So that stands out to me. And then the thing that stood out most to me is over the last 6 matches, Leicester are bottom of the league for expected goals. So they are sitting at an expected goal every 119 minutes, Leicester. If you compare that to Tottenham above, like Kulusevski and Son, the Tottenham are accumulating an expected goal every 45.4 minutes. That's basically 3 times as good as Leicester. So I look at this straight away and think Barnes and Maddison could potentially be, even with all of the fixtures they've got coming up, with the rotation that we're seeing, and with the minutes per expected goal as their team, that doesn't look great to me. Obviously, if they batter Everton like 5 or 6-0 tonight, everyone's going to be talking about bringing them in, let alone keeping them. But the data doesn't suggest that Leicester have been very good. When we look at minutes per expected goal involvement, the only 4 players that have better underlying data than Mason Mount are Saka, Coutinho, Son, and Fernandes. None of the players on this list have better data than Havertz. So what this suggests is you might potentially want to bring in Havertz for any of them. You might even want to bring in Mount just because you get the extra fixture. But only Saka, Coutinho, Son and Fernandes are demonstrating anything which would suggest that they wouldn't be worth selling potentially for one of the Chelsea mids. And then projected points-wise, only Son is projected to get more than Mount and Havertz. The rest are projected to get less than Mount and Havertz. It, of course, matters when these guys double. For example, if you're free hitting in 37, I think you're fine keeping Martinelli, Kulusevski, Saka, all of these guys that double in 36. If you're free hitting in 36, I'd potentially be willing to sell a lot of these guys, and maybe you want to keep the Leicester assets because they double in 37. It really does depend what you're thinking with your team. I guess if I had to give my opinion on assets that I probably wouldn't sell for Mount and Havertz, if I owned them, I wouldn't sell Son and I wouldn't sell Coutinho. For me, these are the two standouts that I wouldn't be selling. Outside of that, maybe you want to keep Saka, still putting up okay data. Maybe you want to keep Fernandes for the double. And then I guess you could potentially want to keep the Leicester assets, but I'm not seeing anything that would make me. So if I had to say my top 3 players that I'd be happy to sell on this list, and again, I don't really want to sell any of them if I had them, but if I were happy to, it would be Barnes, and then maybe Martelli, Kulusevski, and Maddison. Maybe even Saka. You could probably get away with selling Saka. But I probably wouldn't sell Coutinho and Son. And then just because he's got the double, I'd maybe be tempted to hang on to Fernandes. Let me know in the chat. Who are you, if you're currently planning on bringing in Havertz and Mount, or one of them, or a Foden, who are you looking at selling? Who are you looking at selling in your team to bring these guys in? Is it maybe you've just got an obvious option? Again, if you're watching this as a video, let me know down below. Maybe you've just got that obvious, like I said, if you've got like a Ward-Prowse, I'm not saying he isn't a good option, but no upcoming doubles, not the best underlying data. That's an obvious sell. Maybe you've got someone in there that you just have as a cash cow. Maybe you just say, do you know what? I'm happy to get rid of Fernandes. Manchester United look terrible. Fernandes is playing a very deep role. Maybe you just say, do you know what? I'm just going to bin off Fernandes. Manchester United do not look good, which is absolutely fine as well. I don't mind that. Yeah, Saka does have Manchester United next. That's definitely worth noting. Right, I absolutely understand that. If you think that Arsenal are going to dispatch of United, which could quite easily happen, then fair enough. But I think Arsenal and Manchester United both look pretty rubbish at the moment. So you've got that decision to have which one you back to win that game, I guess. Coutinho or Mount with Havertz. Yeah. I love Coutinho as an option. Coutinho is probably going to be my wildcard draft. He's very close to dropping in price. If Coutinho drops to 7 million, that would help me out massively. Yeah, selling one of Saka, Maddison, or Kulusevski. Kulusevski and Saka out, Mount and Havertz in. Yeah, a lot of people. I don't mind selling like a lot of these options on this list. We become very attached to them, and they've all got okay data. The worst data on this is Barnes at 266, which isn't bad. Like, these are all really good options, and that's why I've tried to help you guys here, because they're all such fantastic options. They're such great options still, and they all still have remaining doubles. So I don't dislike any of them, but. Yeah, Saka looks quite a popular one. Maddison and Barnes look fairly popular. A couple of Kulusevskis in there as well. And then we've just seen like some people have Rafinha in there, and I think that's an easier sell probably. Leeds just don't look that great at the moment. All right, cool. Right, so final section before we then move on to the Q&A is just best strikers for the back end of the season. Best budget strikers. So I've only got up to £7.5 million Richarlison. The reason for this is a lot of people are wildcarding, or they're trying to take some money out of their attack, maybe selling Ronaldo. Maybe it's time you sold Kane to try and get Mount and Havertz into the midfield. Of course, we've already spoken about Werner. Fantastic option at 8.6 million. But he is, of course, £1.1 million more expensive than Richarlison. So I'm just going to go through some of these options and just discuss them. What you can see on the list, there's a slight difference. I've actually included non-penalty expected goals per 90 here. The reason for doing this is because a couple of these players, Pukki and Tony in particular, have had very, very high data because they've had a couple of pens in there. So I just wanted to remove penalties from the equation to see if they are still the fantastic options that they look like they are. So first column, non-penalty expected goals per 90. Second column, minutes per expected goal involvement. Then projected points according to FPL review. And then finishing on when they double and then their fixture difficulty in brackets. I actually think most of these are pretty good options. So we'll start with Jay Rodriguez, who looks to have nailed his place in that Burnley attack. Weghorst could still be a decent option, right? He didn't take the penalty, which was quite surprising. Cornet took it, but Cornet did win the penalty, which makes me think that Weghorst might be on them after that, especially considering he missed. Jay Rodriguez at 5.2 has been putting up good data for a while now. If you've been watching my videos, I have been highly recommending Rodriguez ahead of Weghorst for about 3 weeks now. So this isn't a reactionary to him scoring a couple of goals. I've been saying this for a while. 0.52 expected goals per 90, non-penalty, puts him as third on this list. So if you're free hitting in 36, I'd bring Jay Rodriguez in. I think he's a great option. Minutes per expected goal involvement, 167.7. Like I said, because he doubles in 36, but doubles in 37, sorry, but doesn't double in 36, I really like Jay Rodriguez as an option. So very cheap there. You've then got Mateta, 0.6 non-penalty expected goals for Mateta. I think, again, very, very good there. 145.1 minutes per expected goal involvement, I think is very good there. So Mateta, if again, probably alongside Rodriguez, I would say these are your two best options if you're free hitting in 37 or if you're not bench boosting in 37 and you can bench them. Because I don't think either are that great for 37. Mateta does play Watford, but I just think that I would prefer these two options if you're free hitting 36. I think they're both great. They're both fairly cheap. They both have the option of a rotation, but I think they are both still first choice. What this did for me, this research, is it's put me off any draft, including a Watford striker. Watford strikers' underlying data is not good at all. Non-penalty expected goal involvement for João Pedro over the last 6 is 0.18. I know he has a good double in 36. I just don't care. I don't think I care. I think seeing this 509.2, that is worse than Laporte. Laporte's got more goal threat than João Pedro. So when I see this, it's really put me off because I had quite a few really good drafts that I liked where rather than Richarlison as my bench option or as my doubler in 36, I actually had João Pedro. This has put me off. 0.18 expected goal, non-penalty expected goals, 509.2 minutes per expected goal involvement, 16.6 projected points. I'm not a particularly big fan of it as a result. And Dennis is arguably even worse. You can see, actually, his data is slightly better, but 0.24 non-penalty expected goals isn't great. 347.1 minutes per XGI. Like I said, it's better than João Pedro. This has probably made me think if I do end up with a Watford striker, I'll probably try and find 0.4 million for Dennis. But his projected points are actually lower than João Pedro because his expected minutes aren't guaranteed. He was dropped recently or rotated or rested, you could say. I don't think I want any of the Watford strikers, though, for me. So put them in at your own will. I don't fancy them that much here. The big one for me that's been in every single one of my draft, and I'm going to try and back up that I think he's a good option here, is actually Teemu Pukki. Now, 5.9 million is a really nice price point. You can try and get up to some more expensive, but you can always downgrade if you want to Mateta, Rodriguez, Dennis if you want. Right, so you've got a few options that are cheaper. He's got the best non-penalty expected goals per 90 at 0.68 over the last 6. So even when you remove, I think he's only had one penalty. He might have had 2. When you remove that penalty, he's still got really good data at 0.68. His minutes per expected goal involvement is 106.3, which is better than Mount. It's about the same as Werner over the last 6, almost as good as Havertz. Pukki looks like a seriously good option at the moment. Norwich are actually putting up okay data, and Pukki's at the heart of it. When you consider that he's a very good option for bench boost 36, and he's nailed on to start with pens, Pukki's going to be in my wildcard draft. He's been in every one of my wildcard drafts. And even if you're not on your wildcard, I still think you could potentially bring him with a transfer. Oh, Pukki's 6 million, the chat is saying. Oh, yeah, apologies. Yeah. I made this graphic yesterday. I forgot to upgrade. So Pukki's now 6 million. Apologies. So he has gone up in price. It doesn't matter. I think, honestly, and I know this is honestly, even if Pukki was 6.5 or 7, I'd still have Pukki in my wild card. I think his data's good enough. I think the fact that he's nailed is really big. When you're picking the likes of Mount, Havertz and Foden, who are all rotation risk, having a non-rotation risk player that doubles in 36 for me is worth its weight in gold. So Pukki's in all of my teams. You've then got Tony, who has the best minutes per expected goal involvement, but that is due to penalties. So when you remove penalties, you can see he's only got a 0.49 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. So as a result, I still think he's a good option, but the fact that he is reliant on penalties to put up that sort of elite data, and also considering the fact that they've got no doubles across the remainder of the season, and the next 2 fixtures for Brentford aren't good at all, I think you can do a lot better than Tony at the moment. That isn't to say that I don't think you can own Tony on the back end of the season. I think for the back end of the season, and for the final game week, I think they have Leeds at home, Brentford. I think Tony's a great option. I'm probably going to own Tony in game week 38, but I think for now, you can probably do a bit better than Tony. Which leaves the 2 most expensive options who are currently in my wildcard draft. So just to give you a little sneak peek, I'm not going to give you my entire draft. My current front 3 on wildcard is Pukki, Watkins, Richarlison. The reason for Pukki, I've explained already. The reason for Watkins and Richarlison predominantly is they have very good doubles in 36 and 37. So I really like the fact that they double-double. I really like the fact that Richarlison's on pens. Watkins can take penalties, although he's not on penalties as far as I know, but he can take them. For me, these are two good options as a result. I think they're both fairly nailed, although Watkins could be dropped in the odd game. They're both playing a lot of minutes for their team. They both have double-doubles. And when you look at Watkins' data, it's not as bad as some people are saying. So Watkins is actually putting up 0.39 non-penalty expected goals. That's not worth 7.4 necessarily. But when you think he's got Leicester, then Norwich, then Burnley and Liverpool in the double, and then a brilliant double in 37, I actually think Watkins is one of the best strikers as a result. In combination with everything. His minutes per expected goal involvement is therefore 167.3, which is one of the best on this list. His projected points are the highest on FPL review across the final 5 game weeks. So Watkins and Pukki are nailed in all of my drafts. I haven't taken Watkins and Pukki out of any of my wildcard drafts. I think they're really good options. Richarlison's a difficult one, right? Because Richarlison's non-penalty expected goals per 90. I just said non-penalty expected goals per 90 is 0.27. Which isn't good. That isn't good at all. It's not worth 7.5 million. It's actually one of the worst on this list. With penalties and with expected assists as well, you can see he's got his minutes per expected goal involvement as 165.7, which puts him fairly comparable to Watkins. But of course, he did get 2 penalties in there. His projected points are the second highest on this list. And like I said, he does have probably, I think Everton have the best double-double. Out of Villa, Leicester and Everton, they have the best double-double in 36 and 37. If he gets a penalty in there and another attacking return, I'm happy with that. So if you're putting all of this together, if you're on the same strategy as me, which is bench boost 36 and you don't have a free hit, I do think Pukki, Watkins, Richarlison are the 3 to own. I think if you've got a free hit in 36 or 37, it changes it. If you're free hitting in 36, I actually think I would be tempted by Pukki or potentially Dennis, someone like that, right? An option that's decent for 36. And then I would probably go for Mateta and Rodriguez. Like I said, they both double in 37. You wouldn't need them in 36. If you're freezing in 37, of course, Rodriguez and Mateta, they're not options really because they don't double in 36. They're doubling in 37. In that case, you're probably looking at the likes of maybe a Watford striker or Pukki. So there we go. Let me know in the chat what you think. Apologies for the graphics saying Pukki's 5.9, by the way. I know he's gone up in price, which is good because I had him in my team already, so I've caught that price rise. Does Pukki score as many in 36 if Norwich are totally relegated by then? I still think Pukki will start. I still think he can play football. He's still on pens. If anything, that might actually remove a little bit of the pressure. We've seen that a few times in the past. Not always. I'm not trying to build a narrative that isn't there. But sometimes teams that are already relegated actually do quite well. Probably no rush to get Richarlison if you're going to bench him for 34 and 35. Exactly. For me, on a wild card, I think it saves a transfer. But yeah, if you're not wild carding, then maybe there's less of a rush getting Richarlison. I agree. Kane to Werner for a hit. I don't mind that. Watkins, Pukki, Mateta for me. Yeah, I really like that midfield, that front 3. Got a good balance there. It might be that I drop Richarlison if I want to get Son in, or if I want to get another premium defender in, or if I want to get... It might be that I end up dropping Richarlison. At the moment, I'm not looking at João Pedro. These stats are terrible. It'd probably be Dennis or Mateta. Be ready to be disappointed by Watkins and Richarlison. I'm already disappointed by the strikers this season anyway, to be honest. Right, so hopefully those sections were useful for you guys. What we're going to finish off with then is I'll just keep my team up for Game Week 33 if you missed the start of the stream or if you skipped the start of the video. This is going to now be only about a 5 or 10 minute Q&A. Right, so if you wanted to do a super chat, you can do it now. I did miss 2 super chats. Let me try. And how do I get the super chats back up? Let me try and get those super chats. By the way, ask any questions. So this is the final section. I'm going to do a Q&A. I have missed those super chats. If you super chatted, I think I remember who they were. Try and re-ask your question. Apologies. I wasn't looking at the screen. Yeah, do ask your questions right now, and we'll try and get around to answering as many as possible. Right, let's do this. Son or Mane on the wildcard? I'd like Mane. That isn't reactionary. He's got better data than Son across the season, recently as well. I just think you could take a risk on the wildcard, and I think Mane's a great option. Did you free hit this week? Yeah, this is a free hit team. I need a cheap defender as an enabler. Any questions? It depends. You have to give me... If you're asking for an opinion like that, you need to give me your chip strategy. When will we know the Manchester City double? Potentially today, hopefully this week, but not definitely. Ben Crennan and James from Planet FPL think it will be this week, but there's a chance that it's early next week instead. You'd expect it to be this week, though. They're not waiting on any more information. There's nothing going to change with respect to information for them between now and next week. Are you going to show us your wildcard draft? That video will be out on Friday morning. My final team selection and some other picks that I might be considering will be out on Friday morning, 9 a.m. GMT. I'm not focusing on wildcard today. It's very similar to my wildcard guide video. Thoughts on a premium keeper? Kepa, Edison, Alisson. I don't mind it. I would be on Edison or Mendy if I'm going for a premium keeper. Final decision on wildcard, Mendy and Kulusevski or Foster and Foden. I'd go Foster and Foden, assuming you've got another keeper. Would you go Schmeichel and Rudiger or Mendy and Matip? Good question. Schmeichel and Rudiger, probably. Thoughts about Sarr from Watford? I really like Sarr, especially if you're on a bench boost 36. Myla Sarr could be a great option. Got a highlighted message from Stephen. Do you think there'll be a scramble for Kane in game week 38 at home to Norwich? Yes, probably. I think I would probably end up selling one of my midfielders, maybe one of my attackers down to Tony. So like Richarlison to Tony, Mount down to a 4.5 if I already own him. And then I might be able to upgrade one of my other attackers to Kane. So yeah, I think there will be a scramble to get either Kane or Son if you don't already own them. But I've already planned ahead for that. We'll discuss that in the team selection video. But yeah, it is worth noting about that Norwich fixture in 38. Did you enjoy the United game last night? No, it was absolutely horrific. At least I included Salah on the free hit. Laporte versus Coutinho. I prefer Coutinho. On a wildcard, Havertz, KDH, Amati, or Gordon. Oh, sorry. Havertz, KDH, and Amati, or Gordon, Coutinho, and White. I prefer the Gordon, White, and Coutinho because I'm not sure that Amati's going to play for the bench boost. Dennis or João Pedro? Dennis. Mendy and... I've already answered that one. Fernandes to Salah, Rafinha to Mount/Havertz, Kane to Werner for a -8. It's risky, but I like it a lot. I like being aggressive at this point of the season. If you're not happy with your rank or you've got a little bit of something to make up in the mini leagues, I like getting quite aggressive with it. Maddison to Havertz or Saka to Mount. I like Maddison to Havertz there, but I think the sensible player DT would be probably Saka to Mount. When do you expect to hear about City double? Already said that. Probably, hopefully this week. Could be next week. We don't know. They should be ready to announce it whenever. It could be today. Laporte or Foden? Foden. Is Fofana an option? I don't think any of the Leicester defence are an option. Unfortunately, it would be great if they were. It would save me a lot of money, but I don't fancy any Leicester options. They can rotate their entire back four. It's Castagna, Evans, Fofana, and Pereira. And then they can rotate entirely to Thomas, Soyuncu, Amati, and Justin. They can rotate their entire back four. It doesn't make sense to me to go for any Leicester defenders as a result. Don't forget to like the video. 450 in chat, only 137 likes. Thank you very much, Richard, for reminding me. If you're enjoying the stream, this final bit, if you've enjoyed the video, if you're watching this back, please do drop a like. It really helps to support the channel. Can you please talk about any double doublers, which on wildcard, as their quality isn't the best and it'd be hard to fit the City Liverpool tier? Yeah, double doublers that I've got at the moment are Watkins, Coutinho, Cash, Gordon or Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall. One of those four are probably the ones I've got. And then maybe like a Schmeichel. You could potentially go for other players. I've got Richarlison as well. So mainly it's probably more expensive players from Everton and Villa. I know that's not ideal. The cheap players, it's probably Gordon and Dewsbury Hall. Maybe Gordon Ramsay as an option as well. If you watched my... By the way, that reference was if you watched my wildcard video, I kept saying Gordon Ramsay by Gordon, Ramsay and Dewsbury Hall. But when you're listening, it just comes through as Gordon Ramsay. Chip strategy, same as yours. Cheap defenders. I don't like any of them. I'm going to say this once. Please don't laugh at me and dislike the stream. I actually think Michael Keane's one of the better, cheaper defenders. Please don't laugh. He doubles. He'll start every game. He's actually got okay goal threat in recent seasons. He is prone to a red card and an own goal. I still think he's okay. There aren't any. That's why at the moment, my cheapest defender on my wildcard is actually Matty Cash. So I'm sorry, there just aren't any. If you want the cheapest nailed defender that doubles in 36, it's probably Ben Davis from Spurs. Are Arsenal defence a write-off now? I wouldn't say they're a write-off, but I'm not looking to target Arsenal defence personally. Yeah, look, the chat are laughing about me already for mentioning Michael Keane. I think it'll be all right, to be fair. Would you sell Son for a Chelsea mid if it allows you to get a City Chelsea defender? I'd try and do it another way, but if you can't, I wouldn't be scared. I'm going without Tottenham on my wildcard. I don't have any Tottenham. My likes actually went down by 2 when I mentioned Keane. 2 people disliked the video after mentioning Michael Keane. I'm not going to do it again. Tellez, Cody, or Mitchell on wildcard as the 5th defender. Depends if you're free hitting or not, Max, but I'd say probably Mitchell if you're not free hitting in 37. What about upgrading Pookie to Richarlison in game week 36? I don't think that's an upgrade. I don't know why you'd want to get rid of Pookie in 36. You might want to make that move in 37. I don't mind that move in 37. I've actually had someone that just told me that they disliked the video because of Michael Keane. If he scores a bullet header, I want a formal apology. I want you to email me a formal apology if he scores a bullet header. Going without Trent just for this week instead of using 2 transfers on it this week. Yeah, you could go without Trent for 1 week. I hate watching Liverpool without Trent. He could have had so many attacking returns yesterday against Manchester United. That first assist for Salah, if Salah wasn't there, Trent was on the end of that ball and he would have definitely picked out Diaz. It was literally like maybe like a couple of feet away from Trent getting the assist in that. So I'd get Trent back. If you've not already got Trent, I'd get him back in as soon as possible. In wildcard 34, Mane over Salah so I can afford Watkins. I don't dislike it. Mane has been doing very well recently. It's just the lack of penalties and the consistency that we've seen from Salah this season and in previous seasons. I still think I prefer Salah personally, but I don't hate it. Transfer out Saka or Kulusevski. I'd personally transfer out Saka because the next 2 fixtures are more difficult, but Saka's data is slightly better than Kulusevski's. Do you think Salah and Son are going to absolutely duke it out for the golden boot? No. I think Salah will pull away. Bold conversation. Bold thing to say, but I think Salah will pull away. Unless Son goes absolutely ballistic in the next few. I've got a feeling Salah will pull away with it. But yeah, they're both going to want to score as a result. And that is a decent reason to include both on the wildcard. When are you finalising your wildcard draft? I'm pretty much done. The video will be out tomorrow. No, not tomorrow morning. Friday morning. Friday morning, 9 a.m. GMT. Can you post your wildcard team as it stands? I'm not going to do that. It's pretty much the same as the wildcard guide, and it's not going to change much from Friday, and I don't want to duplicate content. So, yeah, my draft hasn't changed too much. Cash over Laporte for Watkins and Richarlison. Yeah, I don't mind cash over Laporte at all. Does a Chelsea injury tonight scupper your wildcard? Doesn't scupper my wildcard. If James gets injured, I go for Alonso. If Mount or Havertz get injured, I probably go for a double up in defence or I'll bring in Werner. If Werner gets injured, fine. Like there aren't many, unless there are like 2 injuries, there aren't many injuries that would change my wildcard draft at all. It would just be like a couple of positions. Love the midday stream, Ross. Perfect for lunchtimes. Thank you very much. We'll go for another 5 minutes. We'll do an hour and 10 because I want this to be watchable as a video after. If I start pushing an hour and a half, 2 hours, no one's going to want to watch this as a video afterwards. My camera's lagging out. I almost made it with the camera. It normally doesn't even last that long. I'm still here, by the way, guys. Just got to reset my camera. Salah, Mane, and Robertson, or Salah, Robertson, and Trent? I think probably Salah, Robertson, and Trent. I've already got Bruno Guimaraes on my bench. Sad life. Oh, yeah, it's tough. His underlying data did not suggest that he would score 2 goals at all. Saka or Coutinho from game week 35. I prefer Coutinho. Doherty to Alonso, Weghorst to Dennis, Kulusevski to Mount for -8. Yeah, that's quite nice to me. Salah, Mane, double up. Mane in great form. Yeah, I did look at a draft with both Salah and Mane. It was just too many downgrades for me. The rest of unless you've not got a bench boost, in which case it's a much easier thing to do, I'm not that keen on the double. I actually like the 1 premium draft still. I need Lacazette not to play. I'd be surprised if Lacazette plays. I can't see it. Doesn't look like he's going to. Who would you keep till the end of the season, Son or Kane? Son. Cheaper. Looks pretty good going for the golden boot. I think both are fine to keep. Tierney and Rafinha to Alonso and Mount -4. Can't afford James. Yeah, I think Tierney and Rafinha to Alonso and Mount's fine. I don't think... If you can't afford James, it's not an issue. I genuinely think James versus Alonso is a straight shootout. I don't think there's a massive difference between the two, personally. Laporte versus Coutinho. I've answered that question like 5 times, mate. Still Coutinho. I don't have a bench boost. Very tempted to double up on them. Still fit in Trent, Cancelo. Yeah, I don't mind. If you don't have bench boost, I really like the Salah and Mane double up, personally. Yeah, I really like that. Can Cash Robertson, Cancelo, James Trent, Cash Robertson, Cancelo, James Trent, how good is this back five? That is a lovely back five. Just depends how much you have to downgrade the actual team to get that sorted. What happened to Lacazette? I actually haven't seen the latest news, and I think it was a falling out of Arteta. That could be completely wrong. I actually haven't. It looks like, as well, he came out and basically said that he's moving on next season. So it might be that they start to try some different stuff out. Nketiah, Martinelli up top, etc. How's it going, Ross? I'm all good, thanks. You've only got a couple more minutes of the stream, but you can watch it back, of course, as a video. Laka had COVID. Okay, I didn't see that then. Robertson, Cash, Dennis, or Laporte, Emerson, and Richarlison on bench boost 36. Oh, probably Robertson, Cash, and Dennis. I don't really like Emerson Royale, to be honest. Coutinho or Maddison? I'd go Coutinho personally. Son or KDB for the rest of the season? I'd take a punt on KDB, but I think Son's the safer option. Would you get rid of Rudiger for James or Alonso on wildcard? I would on wildcard, yeah. I still think Rudiger's a fine option. Like the data that I presented, though, if we switch back to it, it's just he's not demonstrating any, like 750 minutes per expected goal involvement across the last 6. Even if we switch to the season data, 628.4. Rudiger's not a particularly great goal threat. I think James and Alonso will play a similar amount of minutes, slightly less. They'll probably miss one more game. I think the upside is there for me to potentially target Alonso and James instead. So that's my opinion on it. Are you 100% on 2 Chelsea midfield? I'm 90%. It depends what happens. If Alonso gets a rest, if like Alonso and James both get rested, it's not going to happen, but if they both get rested, I'd be looking at it and thinking that's a cheeky double up. And it would allow me an extra midfield spot. If it's basically they all start and they all play reasonable minutes, I think I'd go Mount Havertz and one of James and Alonso, yeah. So I'm pretty set on 2 Chelsea midfield, but I'm not 100%. Ross, wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Love your content. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Right, guys, I'm gonna end it there then. Please, if you on your way out, please do drop a like on the stream. It is massively appreciated. If you're watching this as a video and you watch the entire thing, drop some comments down below on the different things we've discussed today. Do also try out SPITCH, first link in the description. Make sure you drop a like, make sure you drop a comment, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Lots of content still to come across the back end of the season. Still got Bench Boost 36. You've still got my wildcard content for 34. Lots of live streams, lots of videos. I do massively appreciate you all being here at midday on a Wednesday as well. And hopefully we'll get green arrows for game week 33. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Cheers. See you later. Bye-bye.